everybody. I'm here today with Coach Ant, and he's going to be helping me teach you guys takedowns from the rear clinch. Now, we've done a lot of standing skill stuff already, and oftentimes you'll notice that in the fight of the takedown, sometimes you'll end up behind your training partner, hanging onto a body lock, hanging onto the hips. If you haven't found yourself there, don't worry. I'm going to show you some ways to get to that very dominant position. And if you have found yourself there, well, now I'm going to give you guys a couple clear and concise, precise directions to work from that position. Once you have that rear clinch, what exactly should you be doing? So we'll be looking at getting there, and we'll also be looking at takedowns from there. So the way this video is going to break down is we're going to first look at just how to maintain and establish the rear clinch, what kind of grips we use, what are the control elements of it. Then we're going to look at different ways of getting to the rear clinch, either proactively trying to get to the rear clinch or getting into it off of maybe slight scrambles that ensue off of a takedown attempt. Then we're going to look at off-balancing our opponent from the rear clinch. Then we're going to look at taking them down from the rear clinch, which is actually pretty similar to off-balancing. Those two go hand in hand. And then we're going to look at the idea of mat returns, because we use the rear clinch a lot in mat returns, and we'll also have to do mat returns chest to chest to fit situations where our opponent is facing us as well. So with those 5 things, controlling, establishing, getting to it, off-balancing, takedowns, and mat returns, but understand that's the direction we're going to go. Let's get into it with the first step of establishing a rear clinch. So if Ant's turned around, and I'm behind Ant like so, I reach through. In fact, let's go here. I have you keep your hand like so, Ant, so I can talk to the camera. We come through, we lock the rear clinch. Now there are different ways to lock this. We can use no-gi grips. Let's go closer to the camera. We can use no-gi grips here, where I go finger to finger, where I take my 2 hands, I face my hands together like so, and I put my fingers together. Now that I'm here, I curl my fingers in, and we call this a finger-to-finger grip, okay? We can also connect our hands in some other ways that make for a narrower circumference. Understand that finger-to-finger is the largest circle I can make with my arms, okay? So if you got a larger training partner, you might need to rely on finger-to-finger grips. As your training partners get smaller or thinner, you can get narrower with your grips. You can go palm to palm, where you place your 2 palms together. Rather than fingers, you place palms, and then you curl your fingers over the palms. Notice I'm not grabbing with my thumbs. Okay, it makes for a weaker grip. Keep the thumbs next to the index fingers, just palm to palm, wrap the fingers, palm to palm. Then we have wrist to wrist, where I take the inside portion of my wrist, okay, right here, and I put those veins together, and then I curl my wrists and my palms and my fingers over my forearm, and we call this a wrist to wrist grip. So we have finger to finger, we have palm to palm, which is narrower than finger to finger, so we have finger to finger, which is the widest. We have palm to palm, which is a little narrower yet, with a slightly smaller circumference. Then we have wrist to wrist, which is a smaller circumference yet. And then there's some smaller grips. We're not going to use them in the rear body lock, but understand that as we get smaller, we can go to elbow grips, and ultimately to the tightest grips there are, figure 4 grips here. So finger to finger, palm to palm, and wrist to wrist are what we're going to use in the rear clinch. And understand that your other narrower gripping strategies that you'll use in other situations go elbow to elbow and figure 4. Okay. So back with the hands here. So I'm here, I can lock a finger-to-finger grip, I can lock a palm-to-palm grip, or I can lock a wrist-to-wrist grip. As I lock narrower grips, Ant will be able to tell you that the control around the hips is starting to get tighter and stronger, okay? So just something to keep in mind here. Now, we can also use the lapel. In instances where I have an opponent who's wearing a jacket, I can actually reach through and I can grab a lapel tight waist, where I grab a tight waist here, but it only requires 1 hand. to control the body. The nice thing about this is if Ant tries to turn and face me now, going to his left, he can't turn and face me, okay? He's naturally going to want to turn and face me to the left because I'm on this side of the body, my head's over here, so naturally he feels inclined to turn into me this way. To try to turn and face me the other way allows me to be able to catch this hip. If he goes there, I can catch the hip and he can stop him. Oftentimes when we work with a lapel tight waist, this will free up our hand. I can grab the gi pants at the knee right here. So now if Ant tries to turn out the other way, he can't go that way either. He's just giving me his back. Okay? So we have finger to finger grips, palm to palm grips, wrist to wrist grips, and a lapel tight waist grip. They're all great ways to control the rear clinch. One more great way that's not listed in the notes is using a wrist ride or a 2-on-1 wrist grips, where I get in here, maybe I have, let's say, finger to finger or palm to palm, and Ant starts trying to strip my grip. As he goes to strip my grip, I might be able to catch and take either this grip here, going across with a cross wrist grip, or I can go with a straight wrist grip right here with a rear wrist ride, okay? This functions very similarly to a lapel tight waist, where it will stop him from turning into his left, and then if he tries to turn to his right, he has to go further away, and it gives me time to keep up. So those are the different ways we control and grip. Let's talk about one more important element. One more important element with our tight waist. When I control the tight waist, I don't like to lock my hands directly in front of Ant's body. I lock them over here to the side. I do this so that the pocket of my elbow can form fit to the contour, the roundness of Ant's hip bone over here. So when I get to my rear clinch, if I grip here, you can't see it at home in the video, but Ant can feel there's space in the armpits, right here and right here. If Ant were to try to strip my grip here, it's a little easier for him to strip because it's straight in front of him, it's not off to an angle. If he tries to turn his hips in this scenario, he can start to turn it facing, and that starts to get to be an issue, okay? I'm going to go sideways here now. So I want the pocket of my elbow to form fit to his hip, and I want my forearm to lay straight across his hip line, like so. So my bicep is actually to the side of him. My bicep doesn't come around the front. I'm right here, and that's our long arm. So our long arm goes all the way across the hip line. And then I have a short arm that comes in, and my hands lock right on the corner here of the hip, okay? So we have one short arm that only goes around the short side of the hip. And then we have one long arm that goes around the entire waist, and that form fits the pocket of the elbow to the hip over here. So there's no space. So now from here, if Ant tries to turn and face me, it's much harder than when I was here, and he tries to turn and face me, and his hips don't fit into the geometry of the hips fitting into the elbow. It doesn't make for as tight of a seal. Head position and shoulder position. If I have the rear clinch, if my head and my shoulders are up, Ant can reach back around my head, and now he can use that arm to turn and face me, and he can exactly turn and face me once again. So he can either reach back and hook my head, or if he can reach back and put in a whizzer as well. If I'm over here, he gets a whizzer in. Now he can turn and face me, and I no longer have the rear clinch. So when you have the rear clinch, we go elbow deep, we get the pocket of our elbow around the pocket of his hip. So we have an elbow deep tight waist, long arm, short arm. I'm going to use my shoulder on this lat muscle, and my shoulder pushes this way. And I use my head on this lat muscle, and my head pushes this way. So not only does my tight waist make it hard for Ant to turn and face me, but my left shoulder here makes it so when Ant goes to turn to his left, my shoulder makes it difficult. Putting my temple, my head, right on his lat here makes it so when Ant goes to turn to his right, it's difficult. So we're using our head and our shoulder to maintain a good control of Ant, and we have a long arm and a short arm with a grip, either finger to finger or palm to palm or what have you, and now we're going to use this grip to follow our partner around the mat. So here, Anthony's going to try to turn and face me. He's going to try to move and make distance. And notice how I have to move with Ant. Notice how I have to move with him. If I try to hold him and Ant goes to turn and face me, he's eventually going to turn and face me. So you need to be light on your feet, and you need to be ready to move to stay behind him. So when I'm here, Ant's going to go to turn and face me, and we stay behind. And then we'll see later, we start putting him down to the floor. So that's our first section. Those are the details of establishing and controlling the rear clinch. We have different grips to choose from. And keep good head position, keep good shoulder position so they can't turn and face you. And then use one long arm with the pocket of the elbow around the hip and one short arm to close the circle. Don't forget that there's a couple other gripping options that that are a little different, a little special. With the gi, we have a lapel tight waist, and in a no-gi situation, we have the rear wrist ride, where we reach through, we cup around that wrist and glue that wrist in. So a lot of really great ways to control the rear clinch that make it very tough for your opponent to face you. Now, it's not enough just to hold that rear clinch. We've got to be able to finish from there, and we've got to be able to enter it there. Nobody's just going to let you walk around behind them and give them a bear hug from the back. That'd be ridiculous. We have to come up with ways, creative and strong ways, to get around our opponent's body, to pass their arm across the center line, or to take advantage of some botched takedown attempts. So let's start taking a look. Some ways that we might get around the rear clinch, or to the rear clinch, I'm sorry. If I'm here, and square up to me here, over here, and take a stance, good. Let's first look at an arm drag. The first family we're going to look at for getting to a rear clinch is the idea of dealing with the arm directly. Understand that it's the arm that's going to stop you from getting around to the back. If I want to go around to the back, Ant's just going to use his arm to stop me. That's literally just stick your arm out down here. I go around the back, his arm's going to stop me from getting around the body. So I've got to find a way to get his arm across my body so I can get access to the back. So one great way to do this is with an arm drag. I'm going to show you how I'm going to ask you guys to do the arm drag, and I'm going to show you guys how everyone botches it up. Come in, arm drag just like so. I grab the hip, and I get around to my rear clinch. One more time. I come in with a wrist grip. I pass the wrist across my center line, and I step in to or past the outside ankle line, facing my opponent. I take an arm drag grip, and I put my shoulder in behind Ant's shoulder. My ear next to his ear. And I hold him just like so. So when he tries to pull his shoulder away from me, it's not easy. So we're here. Ant, he tries to pull his shoulder away. I'm staying behind the shoulder. Now from here, I can release this wrist that I had to pass by before, and I go to the far hip, over here. So now I have a form of diagonal control. I've got this shoulder under control, and I've got this hip under control. If Ant tries to turn and face me in either direction, my left hand on the hip stops him from turning to his right, and my left hand on the shoulder stops him from turning to his left. And now from here, it's very easy for us to come through, and we establish our rear clinch. Setting our grip, getting good arm position, getting good head and shoulder position. Here's what everybody messes up. They go in for the arm drag. They step in here like they're putting a hook in, or like they're going into half guard because they're trying to stay tight here. They're trying to shut this arm out. So that's the thought process, is that they're trying to get so tight with this arm that the arm's past you. But now when I try to reach the hip, I can't get it. Look how far my left shoulder away is from the hip. But when I step in with my left leg and I leave my right leg back, and when I take my left shoulder, I put my left shoulder behind his shoulder, watch where my arm can start to reach. I can now get to the far hip. And I can secure that far hip. So rather than coming in with your arm drags like so, where now he's going to re-drag me, he's going to drag my arm, and he might get to my back. That's also the big danger there. If I go here and I step like so, he grabs my elbow, we have the same position on each other. So I'm going to try to drag him, he's going to try to drag me, and here's what always happens, go for my back, yeah? And that happens. Okay, they'll do a quick twist, and then they'll separate. One more time, I come in, and nobody gets the back. But when I come in like this, and he tries to re-arm drag me, re-arm drag, it's not easy, very hard. So we come in by stepping, like so, taking the arm drag so I'm facing Ant and not facing away from him. I'm here looking at him. We get the hip. So one more time, we come in. Just like that. And we get the back. We also have duck unders, or slide buys. We're here. I take a collar tie on Ant right here. I take an inside bicep tie. I use the inside bicep tie to flare Ant's elbow open, lifting his elbow. Now from here, I'm going to drop to my left knee. And as I drop to my left knee, I throw my left elbow back over my head. Like so. I grab the far hip. I stand up. And I'm here in a rear clinch. So a quick duck under one more time. You come in, you get the collar tie. Flaring open. And I get to my rear clinch. See. Some other ways we can get to the rear clinch is if we botch, or not botch, but just off of our takedown attempt. When I try a takedown, my partner's going to try to resist it. They're in their resistance, in their fighting, when they base, as they base their hands and feet to the floor and try to get back up, sometimes you're going to get access to the back. Let's look at a collar drag, for example. I come in, I grab the sleeve, I grab the cross collar. I come in, I drag everything down to the floor. As I come up, Ant tries to run away from me, but I've already got the far hip. He's going to try to turn and face me. I come around, and I find my rear clinch. So again, off the collar drag, a technique you already know how to do, a technique you learned in class. The collar drag, one of our favorites. Maybe we're in here, maybe he grabs my lapel. I come in here with a cross cuff, straight cuff grip, my fault. Straight cuff grip. We break. I come in here to take a cross collar. I come in, I break, I come up, and we end up in a rear clinch. Toenail okay? Yeah. Felt like like that. You all right? Yeah. Sorry. We go in for, again, that, lost my train of thought now. Oh, the collar drag. We go in for the collar drag. He doesn't go all the way down the mat. He bases and tries to turn and face us, but we get to that rear clinch, we get to the hip. Could be a single leg. I come in here. I come in, I get my single leg. Okay? Now from here, something I can do is I can come up here, grab Ant's lapel from the single leg, and I can physically pull him down toward the floor. He's going to base, so he doesn't go down. But when he bases, and now he stands back up, we now have the rear clinch. So once again, he comes in, maybe he takes my lapel. I'm going to break this guy off, moving around. I come in for my single, just like so. Go back up. Don't fall so easy. He goes for my lapel. I break. I'm controlling the power hand. My right hand comes up to the lapel, to the collar here. I'm going to keep my right hand right on the collar. That's going to let me pull his head down to the floor later. From here, I'm moving around. I'm forcing the step with the leg I want to attack. I come in, I stand up. Now from here, I'm going to use this grip to pull him down to the floor. He bases, and I get to the rear clinch. We could go with a double leg or double unders. If I get up here to double unders, and I'm starting to get a body lock here, and I'm forcing Ant's head back, and I'm starting to take Ant down. He starts to base to the floor, and you could end up in a rear clinch. Let's look at that again. I come in, I get inside position, I get to a body lock, I get good head position, under the chin. I get to my body lock. I start to straighten him up. He's trying to move around, I keep him straight. From here, I start to step in like I'm reaping, a forward reap, turning him down to the floor. He's got a choice. He can either accept being taken down, or he can base. He bases, he goes to stand back up, but when he goes to stand back up, I run behind him. Okay? One more time, I think we might have gone out of the frame on that one. I'm here, go. I try to take him down. I start reaping. I run behind, and I'm in a rear clinch. Double leg. I take the arms out of the way. I come in. Double leg. I'm going to try to take him down, put him on his back. But as I try to put him on his back, he turns chest down to the floor. He stands up, and we're in a rear clinch. One more time. I come in, he goes to grab my hands, I move his hands out of my way, I shoot, and I get my double leg. I try to force him down. Exactly, just like that. We come up in a rear clinch. So many ways that you might end up there. Situations where he tries to take me down. He comes in, he shoots on my leg. I come close and snap him down. I run around, he gets back up, and I'm in a rear clinch. All right, so we snap him down, go behind. I get to a top turtle. Anytime you're in a top turtle, literally anytime you're in a top turtle. I'm in top turtle, and Ant stands up. Rear clinch. Anytime you're in top turtle and they stand up, rear clinch. If he comes in for a hip throw, we're here. I pull back, I get the belt grip, I send him forward. Rear clinch. All right, so be open-minded to this, guys. There's so many different ways you can force your opponent to base their hands on the floor. When they base their hands on the floor, it's so easy to get around them. Get them out of balance enough that they need to go here. If you can make them do this, you can get behind them and take either to a turtle and break them down, or if they stand back up, at the very least, you get a rear clinch out of it. So that's the second section of the video. We looked at how to establish and maintain control. We looked at how to get there and how to get to the position. Now let's look at how to keep our opponent out of balance. When I'm behind Ant, he can't see what I'm doing. Okay, I have the element of surprise. It's hard for him to see what I'm trying or scheming. Not only that, but I can attack him at will, and he can't attack me almost at all. There's some tricks he can do, but not many. So I'm at such a big advantage. When I'm here, I want to not give him time to think about how to get out. I want to keep pressure on him. I want to keep him under threat. So I'm always going to be off balancing. Some things we can do here are a quick hip pull, just to get him out of balance. Okay, he's here, he's walking around the mat, he's trying to get away. I give a quick pull, and that keeps him out of balance. Okay, another thing we can do to keep him out of balance. And guys, this is my favorite. So we have a hip pull. Okay, that's there. My favorite is a straight rear back trip. Now, this is also one of my favorite takedowns, and this takedown isn't in the video, so I'm making a note to mention that. I'm sorry, it's not in the notes. This takedown is not in the notes. I'll try to remember to add it later, so maybe by the time you get these notes, it'll be in there. But right now, it's not in the notes. One of my favorite ways to take somebody down from this rear clinch. I step and I block. I pull his hips over the foot until he's past the point of no return. And then I take my foot back and I land back on my feet. Now, he might fall all the way down to his shoulder. That's pretty unlikely. He's probably going to land on a hand or an elbow. If he lands on an elbow or a hand, doesn't matter which one, look at where he's at. This is familiar, right? And where is this familiar from?
Our hip breakdown.
This is our hip breakdown. Guys, you know what to do from here. We come in, we can either take the seatbelt and start putting hooks in and chair sit to the back. What's another thing we can do, Ant?
You can slide this leg through.
Yeah.
Hip heist?
Yeah, hip heist, slide that leg through. Absolutely. Otherwise, we can move him to another form of a breakdown. We can take him up to a seated breakdown and put hooks in from here. Otherwise, we could reach through, grabbing this wrist ride grip, pulling it in and driving him down over that shoulder for a shoulder breakdown. And then from the shoulder breakdown, we can service it from here once we get our claw grip. So that's another method of off balancing, but I also use it as a takedown. Once I get to a rear clinch, I block, I pull the hips, and once I feel like he's past the point of no return, I take my foot away. Notice in order to do that, I've got to be very well balanced on my one foot. I've got to go hit, boom, pull, catch. And one more time. So when I do it in a normal speed, it'll look like that. One more time. We're here. Ant's trying to strip my grip. We're walking around. And we're ready to go. Some other off balances. So that was a straight back trip, straight rear back trip there. We can also go with inside and outside forward trips. If Ant has a narrow stance like he has now, I can come over around like so, and I can start hopping and driving forward and off balance him that way. He'll go to either a turtle or a 4-point. I can come around here, I can hop, take that out, and he'll go to a 4-point. We know what to do from here. We can either come in with asymmetrical hooks, strong body, or we come in with our spiral breakdown, breaking him down to a hip. Yeah, off balance. So I'm here. If he's got a narrow stance, it makes more sense to go from the outside. I come in outside, driving him forward, kicking this leg out, and we break him down to a 4-point. From the 4-point, we can either spiral ride to break him down, running in a circle, or we come up, we put in a thigh pry on the far side here, we go knee deep on the near side, hook deep on the other, and then we power half to break them down to the mat, collect the head, and we're ready to choke. If Ant has wider feet, now maybe I can't reach around the outside so well, but it becomes very easy, face the camera. Maybe I can't go around the outside very well, but it becomes very easy to start coming in from the inside. Now when I trip from the inside, my goal is not to take his foot back. My goal is to spread his feet apart. To knock that foot out. Okay, so we're here. Ant has wider feet. He doesn't want me to be able to come around with my outside trip. So from wider feet I come in. My goal is just take his foot and do this. Okay, back up. If I try to come in, and I try to knock that foot back, it's not going to go anywhere. But I come in and I hook, and if I can pull his foot out from the other one, that's hard for him to stop. So we're kicking it out straight to the side. Where here he's got wide feet, I see, I come in, kick it out, sorry Ant, that was kind of hard, all right? Okay. I kick out to the side, I knock him down to a knee. One more time, that's easy. Oh. He goes down to a knee. Once we have him down on one knee, what do we do next? What do you think, Ant?
You throw hooks in.
You could put hooks in. You could
break them down to the elbow.
Yeah, so you could put hooks in, but the problem is Ant's up here on a foot. If I start putting hooks in, Ant's still pretty athletic. He can move. So from here, I would probably break him down to a hip, get him off his knees, and now we can start coming in and putting in our attacks. So yeah, we got the off balancing methods. We got the hip pull, we got the back trip, and then we got the forward trip from the outside or from the inside. Where we knock them forward either down to a turtle, where we know how to attack turtle, either an open turtle or a closed turtle, or we forward trip them up to a 4-point position. And if they go to 4-point, we use either asymmetrical hooks and power half them down, Or we use a rear body lock, come up by the shoulders and use that spiral rod, running in a circle, breaking down, that spiral breakdown. Now, we've gone through establishing control. We've gone through getting to the position. We've gone through how to keep your opponent out of balance. Now we're going to go through the takedowns. How do we actually finish the takedown from this rear clinch position? I'll be honest, guys, it's a lot of what we already worked. It's a lot of the off balances. Let's get into it. Takedowns. Okay. I get to a rear clinch. Again, my favorite takedown, which may or may not be in the notes when you guys are watching this video. Hopefully, I remember to do it later. Is coming in with a straight trip, pulling, knocking him out of balance, getting him down to a hip. Notice I stand on my feet. I did not go to my hip. Why does that matter? Back up. Sometimes your opponent's going to be really determined to stay on their feet. They're going to do literally anything they can to not go down. So when I go and I hit this technique, and he doesn't go down, no big deal. Who cares? Look where I'm at. I didn't lose anything. He didn't go down the first time. There's no reason I can't try it a second time. Or a third time. I can switch sides and try it a fourth time to the other side. You can just shoot this shot over and over and over again. They can't turn and face you as long as you keep a good, strong rear clinch. And you can attack them freely, and it's very hard for them to attack you. So we have the straight rear back trip as a dragging technique where I drag them down to the floor. Again, my favorite way to do it is to stay on my feet. Here. Now there are other ways to do it. I can commit my weight down to the floor. I can use a full closed wedge, my body lock here, stepping to the outside ankle line, stepping through, I can drag and land on my elbow to make sure I win the battle for head height. And that works very well. Now that I'm here, my hip height's up, and now we're back to our hip breakdown. So that's another option, is you can use your entire body weight to drag them down. But I'm going to let you know why I don't like to go to this one right away. If Ant has a really good base, and he knows to step over my trip, even if he gets caught a little bit, if he stumbles and then steps over my foot as I go down, go ahead. He's going to stay up. And so here's what will happen. I go for my trip. You ready, Ant? Ah, shoot. Okay? You committed your body weight down to the floor, certain that you were going to hit this technique. But your partner's not just going to fall for you. They're going to try to stay up. And if he's successful in staying up and you've committed your weight down to the floor, they're going to be in a better position than you. They're on your feet. They're athletic. You're on your hip. You're unathletic. That's not a good